Internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Miss Couture, and today we are going to do a sweater quantity for a pattern that I'm going to be working on soon. So it's not my pattern, just so we are all clear. We are going to be seeing the full process. So it's the reason I'm making this video is if you are trying to do a sweater quantity of a tonal, I'm just going to give you some here and there tips and clues on what you can do to make sure that you have, like, as much as possible a tonal that will reflect properly on every single skein of yarn, because unfortunately for many of us, depending on what you're doing, you will need more than one pot to dye your yarn for your sweater quantity. So this is, for me, this is just some tips and tricks to help you out to achieve an overall look that will not look weird, if I may say, where you won't necessarily notice that you have more than one skein that were in different batches, technically, since they're not in the same pot. So this is the intention behind it. So the sweater we're going to do is a pattern by Claire Jackson from Perfectly Knotted. I'm going to be knitting the Moria Sweater, which is a collaboration she made with Coley Nielsen from Paisley Knit for her Lord of the Ring collection from 2025, summer 2025, I believe. I could be wrong there. Don't take my word for it. So it's a size inclusive pattern, and if I don't mistake, it goes up to 72 inches bust for the actual, so that's for the finish bust. So it goes from 32 inches to 72 inches, or 80 centimeter to 180 centimeters. So to fit actual bust of 24 to 28 inches to 68 inches, or 70 centimeters to 160 and 170 centimeters. So this is size inclusive. I will have the link in the description box so that you can go grab the pattern if you're interested. I will link her Ravelry, her Etsy, and her website. So whichever... Why did it zoom? Why is it zooming? Stop zooming. Stop zooming. I don't want zoom. I will fix that. Bye. Hello, my friends. So today we are going to be doing a sweater quantity. Why am I doing a specific sweater quantity with you all? It's to help, at least try, to help you achieve the best overall result. So if you're doing a sweater quantity, ideally everything would be in the same pot, but we don't have, at least I personally don't have pots big enough to have all the same skeins into this. So what will matter here is consistency and trying to be as precise as possible. So in this case, we're going to go into the big jug and we're going to mix our dyes all in this one. Well, it's just one dye anyways, so that, okay, make sure that it's at 0 when you are measuring everything. So to make sure that everything will technically be the same color batch. So because sometimes when you dye from one day to the other, there is some slight variation that can happen, not necessarily the dye lot for this. So for example, for the sage leaf, we have the dye lot number 26, and I don't have that much left. I know that I have enough to do my sweater quantities. It's just that I don't know if I were to need an extra skein, for example, of I don't know if I would have enough to do that extra skein, and then I would need a new jar of dye, and this might be a different dye lot. So for example, I have two different, like, I have extras of the colors that I'm using often. So I by accident I bought twice of the same extra here. So here we have extra espresso bean. So we have the dye lot number 17 and number 18 here. So it means that they're not the same batch of dyes, which means that they might not react exactly the same as I would be expecting them to do. So this is something to keep in mind if you need an extra skein. So today we're going to be dyeing 8 skein of the Swish bulky weight from Knitpicks. And why I'm doing 8 is simply because I don't know if, like, I know actually that I won't be needing that extra 8 one. I need at least 6.5 skein to do the pattern that I want to do. I'm just doing an 8th one just in case, basically. So this is something to keep in mind if you're doing a sweater quantity and you will need repairs in the future, you will have the extra as well. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that this is at 0, which it is. We are going to grab our respirator because we only have 1 pair of lungs and we need to protect them. And then we're going to measure our dye. Oh. Okay, let's get measuring. Okay, so we are going to measure my, oops, and there's a little too much. Not too much, like not a whole lot, but a little bit. Almost. Okay. And I lost my thing here. Okay, so we're good here. We can take this out. Now I will need 8 cups of water. Because I have 8 skein. So I'm going to start with this. And now that this is wet, I can remove my respirator and add the rest of it. Okay. We're going to give a good stir. So I had my skein pre-soak overnight in tap water. And now that we have our dye mixed all up, we will be able to work the dye into our things. So let's do this. So we are going to take 200 milliliter of our mixture of our dye that we did earlier. One, because we have 2 skeins that will be going into this spot. Like this. Okay, so I'm going to stop this here. Going to need to grab my gloves. And the movement will be important to try to avoid as much as possible to have resistance into the skeins. And we have here, they are 100% superfine merino. Look at how pretty this color is. Okay. And we want to move as much as possible the tie wrap as well. So those are reusable tie wrap. We want to move them because they will create natural resistance within the skein, which is something we are trying to avoid as much as possible. Because, we're going to try to do a tonal here. So we want as much as possible of a tonal. So the movement will help to do that. Going up and down will also help with that. Okay. And going to do a good stir in here. Maybe add a little bit more water. And then this, we're going to put that on the stove. And it's going to take longer for me to get this one to the right temperature. So we're going to leave it for a few hours because it's going to take a long time to reach the right temperature. And rule of thumb here is 1 teaspoon of citric acid per skein of yarn. All right, so we're going to leave this on the stove until we reach between 85 to 95 Celsius. And from that time, we are going to do a 30 minutes baking time, and then I will see you later for that. So I'm just going to quickly do I'm just going to quickly do a stir in all of the pots to try to make sure that we have an even coverage on all of the skeins of yarn. There we go. And there we go. And also, just a friendly reminder that all equipment I'm using is dedicated to dyeing yarn. I do not use those pans and pots and utensils to anything else other than dyeing. I do not use them for cooking or gardening or anything else. So we are trying to avoid cross-contamination with our dyes because we don't want to poison ourselves. Okay, friends? So this is only used for dyeing yarn. And the water is really not near close to the 85 to 95 Celsius that we need them to be. So we're still going to keep them there. And honestly, when it comes to dyeing tonals, it's a good thing that we have a slow and steady pace for absorption rate. So we already have our citric acid in here. So it's 1 teaspoon per skein of yarn. And yeah, so we have that in here. We're just going to go slow and steady, and I will see you later tonight for this. Okay, let's take a peek. Okay, we are all clear. Yeah, we're all clear, so I'm going to be able to turn off the heat on those, and we're going to let it cool completely, and then once it's completely cooled off, I'll be able to cake them. Well, not cake them. I need to wash off any excess dye, then let it dry, then cake them. Okay, we got this. See you later. Okay, let's wash off excess dye. Okay, so we've cooled off completely everything. So now we are able to let it soak. So with this color, I don't usually see a whole lot of bleeding, so I'm not expecting. Let's see, we don't have any colors left, which is always good and makes me happy to see. So where is this? Okay, now that we have everything here, we're going to let this soak for like 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and see what we have, and then if it's all good, it's going to go into the spin dryer. So I will see you in a bit. Okay, let's see. I'm fairly certain that we're going to be good to go. So, oh, this is heavy. Yep. So I'm going to put this in my spin dryer, and then we're going to let it dry overnight, and I will see you tomorrow. Will I show you the final result tomorrow? I'll most likely do a quick show of the skeins next to each other, and then after that I'm going to start knitting the pattern I have in mind. Okay, anyways, I will see you at some point. Okay, so now that we've finished dyeing the yarn, I caked everything and now we are ready to cast on. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing any progress overall or anything. However, you will see the final result on the sweater because I want you to see what it looks like once you've achieved the result you want, once you've dyed everything and did the thing. And so okay, best practice would be to alternate skeins, but I'm most likely not going to be alternating skeins for this, just because I don't really care that much because it's a personal project. So you will be able to see if I did not do good with the dyeing job. So we will be able to see what it looks like in the end. Okay, so I will cast on and I will see you with the finished result. For me, it's going to be weeks. For you, like this. Ciao. And here's the final result of my sweater quantity to do the Moria Sweater by Perfectly Knotted. As you can see, we have a very even color. I did not alternate any skeins of yarn, so I think I don't think you can tell where one started and one finished, so I'm very pleased with that. I'm very happy with that how it ended up. So as I mentioned, I will be linking in the description box the pattern. So I will be linking to her website, her Ravelry, and also to her Etsy shop. And I really love the texture of this sweater. This is why I made it. So there is broken rib pattern. There's also the diamond shape. There is arch over here. And what do we have else? We have the broken rib stitch. We have the arch, the diamond. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's 3 different texture that you will find in this pattern, which I really love. Yeah, so that was fun. I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I hope I gave you enough confidence to dye your own sweater quantity for a sweater. So thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye!